But there's more bad news. Anthony Albanese has planned to subsidise childcare so that parents are only paying $10 a day. The rest, of course, will be paid by the taxpayers. Now, I suppose parents will love this. Certainly childcare providers are going to love it. But economists are warning this is going to be a massive impost on the taxpayer. In a report examining pathways to universal childcare released in September, the Productivity Commission estimated that a $10 a day flat fee model for childcare would cost $8.3 billion. If they just had subsidies at 90%, across the board it would cost $6 billion. So it's a nice sounding idea to help parents, but it's going to have a massive cost, $8.3 billion to begin with. And I'm thinking, aside from subsidising childcare, are there some other things in this country that could do with $8.3 billion? I'm thinking our Defence Force, could do with some ships. I mean, we couldn't even send one to the Red Sea to help secure global shipping. $8.3 billion would be pretty handy there right now. Not only that, but demand for childcare is going to outstrip supply. As soon as it's $10 a day, well, the childcare centres will be overrun. So obviously that's going to lead to increasing prices. It's hard to believe the government aren't going to create another NDIS with this thing. It starts off at $8.3 billion and it just continues on. And it's one of those things, who's ever going to wind it back? Who's going to tell mum and dad we're going to now start charging you more for your childcare? But beyond all that, and I reckon you'll be strong on this one, Liz, it undermines families.
100%.
Because kids need parents, not minders.
Yeah.
And the government, if they want to help families and want to do something for families, find a way to help mums and or dads be with their kids in those formative years rather than finding ways to help parents offload them.
I find it utterly vomitous that your government wants to convince you this is how we're helping families. No, you're not. You just want mothers to get back to work to generate more tax dollars for you. That is all you give a flying rip about. 79% of women in this country return to work just 12 months after giving birth. And that's staggered. So some go back after 3 months, some go back after 6, some go back after 12. But all in all, within 12 months, 79% of brand new mums are back at their desk working for the man. And I tell you what, the vast majority of women wouldn't prefer that. It's not their preference. You're not empowering women by taking their children off them in infancy to be raised by the state. That's what this really is. The government doesn't give a rip about you. It doesn't give a rip about your children, except that they're the little sheepies that have to keep their economy going in the future. We all know that John D. Rockefeller put together the modern education system in order to breed conforming sheep. That was the whole point of it. Kids were smarter when they weren't educated in this cookie cutter way. And earlier, the state wants to take them off you. You go back to work. You go generate tax dollars. We'll take your infants off you. We'll raise them. And how many times do we talk about the education system in this country and what a cesspool of indoctrination it is? Pretty much. Whether it's primary school, whether it's high school, whether it's our universities, my gosh, that seems to be what they're best at doing. And I tell you what, we in the West aren't much better than the Soviet, the communists of years gone by, because they understood the power of taking the child, the state taking the child at a young age and educating it. That's where we get the famous quote from Hitler saying, "He alone who gains the youth gains the future." It was Lenin who said, "Give me a child at the age of 8 and he will be a Bolshevik forever." Stalin also said education is a weapon, and what the impact that it has depends on who's holding that weapon and who he's aiming it at. The state knows the power of education. It's not just, let's take the kid off the mum at a really young age and raise it ourselves. There is also this indoctrination bent. You go back to work, we just want you for your tax dollars. You're just numbers to us. Thank you very much. Goodbye. We'll take care of the kid. But there is an agenda behind that. I don't care what anyone says.
And the paradoxical problem for the federal government is that by doing that, they actually shoot themselves in the foot because, of course, they want you to go back to work now so you can generate tax dollars. But in order for tax dollars to be generated in perpetuity, you need another generation to come through. And you look at the fertility rate in Australia, it's going through the floor in no small part because it is so expensive to live now that people can't afford to have a child. And so you look at the circumstances and you go, well, why would I have a kid? It's too expensive. I've got to go straight back to work. So they've actually created a situation where they don't have another generation coming through, which is why we rely so much on immigration. And the economics of this, and economists are simply pointing out, the plain obvious truth here. This thing is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, gee, I should look into opening a childcare centre because it has been operating as a Ponzi scheme for years, whereby they go, OK, the cost of childcare is going up, so we as the government will increase the subsidy. So the childcare centre then goes, excellent, the subsidy's gone up 10%, so we'll just whack our fees up 10%. So the following year, the government goes, oh my God, the price of childcare has gone up. We'd better jack up the subsidy. And on and on and on and on it goes. It is an endless money pit, essentially, for childcare centres because the government just keeps topping up whatever the childcare centres ask for. I mean, is that not the greatest business model you've ever heard of in your life?
And there's plenty of mums who are saying, I'm basically, what I'm earning by going back to work is being so consumed by my childcare costs, I'm literally paying the state to raise my child. I might as well just stay at home. But of course, mums can't do that because they want to be able to keep their job. So by the time maternity comes up, unless they've got a support system, that means, well, I have got the option, which sadly nowadays is a luxury, of staying at home with my children, then I have to go back to work because I don't want to lose my job. It's absolutely disgusting. I hate how they market this to women as, we're empowering you now, you can go back to work. Do not assume what we want. If you actually listened to what women want, why don't you pay them what you're paying the daycare centres to stay at home and raise their own children? Because you'd get far healthier generations coming up through the ranks who are raised properly at home before reaching school age and then going off to school at the age of 5. Why don't you do that, government? It wouldn't cost you anymore. And women around the nation would be very grateful and no doubt take you up on the offer.